Celtics had some really good players, but also a few like weak links on the defensive and offensive
I'm
side.
sorry. Just to interject, I'm so sorry.
You
said
go
they
ahead,
didn't
please.
they didn't have a chance to stop Steph Curry. That's so weird because I thought they had the defensive player of the year. The defensive player of the year is on their team. Oh man, this is the most exciting time of the year. It's the time when you really got to get your shoulder workouts in, kids, because you might have to put some gold on. You might have to put some gold over those shoulders. And what you don't want to do is not prepared, not have saw the visionary prophecies it would take to have this gold on your shoulders. And then when it's time to hold it, you're just too weak. You know what I'm saying? So I've been working out, blogging all year. In fact, blogging the year before that, but I never blog alone. In fact, I got some of my favorite blog boys in the whole wide world for this championship edition of the DNHQ Vidcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hardy, the gold-blooded king, and I've got Triple D, D-Cubed, W-Dub-Dubs himself, and all the way from the UK, Patrick Murray. Gentlemen, how does it feel to be champions again?
So sweet. So sweet. Like a weight is lifted, you know. I got a little emotional. You know, when Steph cried, I was like, that might be me too, Steph. Like, I'm real close here.
I cried, man. I definitely cried. In fact, everyone I knew actually cried at that moment. That's why when you're a champion, you got to have something to help you with those tears. Okay. That's why I got the official spirit of the NBA right here, folks. If you don't know, I'm a big supporter of the NBA any way I can. And that means drinking some championship Hennessy. Look at that. Championship basketball Hennessy. We're here. Yeah. So what? I don't care if it's 8 a.m. We're celebrating.
Can't drink all day if you don't start before noon, Daniel. It's 8:47 for the people at home.
That is the wisdom we need for this one. Patrick, how you doing, man? How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 4:47 over here in the afternoon. So like that's perfectly acceptable time to start drinking, by the way. No, I'm great. I have to say this is probably actually my favorite championship of the lot. I know, you know, there's never anything quite like the first one, but just the amount of nonsense that's been talked about the Warriors for like ever since they won that championship, but particularly over the last 3 years, it's just so sweet. It's just so sweet to be back on, to see them back on top, you know, and the way they did it was, you know, it was the original guys, you know, plus rehabilitation of Wiggins, plus guys, you know, Poole they drafted, but it wasn't. They didn't make some mega move. It's like it's a homegrown team basically, plus a trade to get a player nobody else in the league wanted, and then turn him into this championship player. I mean, it's incredible. But yeah, so for me, it's it's the sweetest one. And it kind of, not that any of it needs validating at all, but it kind of validates everything that happened before. And I think the other thing, you know, 2015 happened, like there's a naivety to it. Like it's the first time you win, you're like, you don't know, you know, but now having gone through all the highs and all the lows of like this 8-year run with, you know, the you know, losing the championship in 2019, the 15-50 year, the kind of struggles last year when they just weren't clicking like the Warriors until the end of the season. You're just much more appreciative. You understand, you feel the journey and the grind and what it took to get back here. And that's what, you know, you can see. I totally get why, you know, Steph Curry wasn't in tears after the first one or the second one or the third one, but after this one, at that moment, you know, that's the thing. And as Mr. Dubs over there says, it's like a weight lifted off, and I think that's the scary thing for the rest of the league, right? This is not the Spurs in 2014, right? This is not the last flourish of a dynasty. This is the beginning of the next phase of the next age of a dynasty, and it is a dynasty by any definition. You've had multiple iterations of a team winning. You know, replenishing the supporting cast, replenishing the, you know, the Durant era was an era in itself. You know, this is a dynasty, and this is the beginning of, whether you call it the third act or the second act, you know, I don't know, but this is the beginning of something, not the end. And so in that way, it feels like the first, but with all the knowledge and all the kind of emotion of everything that happened in the last 8 years. So yeah, that's why for me it hits different, as they said. It hits,
with the new age lingo. Okay. I love that. There was a couple points that I want to just touch on in terms of I guess big picture stuff. But before I get to those points, and there's 3 of them, okay, and I'm stealing them from someone's Twitter thread. I'll give them some credit. But before I get to that, my goodness, we were down 2-1. We had lost home court advantage to the greatest defense in the history of basketball, with Jason Tatum, the Mamba disciple, and Jaylen Brown, the guy from Cal. Like it was intense. And I remember as before the series started, we said Warriors in 6, and we said it's gonna be a tough series, but eventually the Warriors would figure it out. There's a tweet circulating about Andre Iguodala. I think Festus Ezeli said it, where he said that Iguodala was basically celebrating it for 2-1, saying that they'd figured it out. What do you guys think they figured out, and what was it that caught Boston off guard?
Well, I think the first thing that they figured out is that they really can't stop Stephen Curry. They could not figure out Stephen Curry. And I think that it's sort of understood that if you can't alter the impact of our very best player with your top-notch defense, you're fucked. And you could choose how you want that to happen, and that's what happened with the series. Is the Celtics were like, oh, we got to stop Steph from going crazy, let's double him. And then we pointed out in one of the previews, like every time they doubled Steph, it was 2 points, basically. Like the team is too good at shredding off that help, especially with the roster they had. And Tatum said they were just a different creature versus like the Bucks and stuff like that. It's not just that these guys are champions and they, the champion DNA and all that stuff. It's that Curry in particular presents a problem that's pretty tough to solve. And I think that, especially having gone through series before, and this is something that we were talking about right after they went down 1-2, Dubs and 6 is still on the table. Like you have to understand that when you talk about a team winning in 6 games, that means they still lose 2 games. And like, some of them might be ugly, but like, the shooting aberration in that first game, that's just sort of one of those, like throw them away and like, whatever. But I think that the Warriors really figured out that Stephen Curry was going to be the key, and that Boston actually, not only do they not have the tools to stop him directly, but if they overcommit, they don't have the sort of rotational intelligence that you need, like that classic Houston Rockets team sort of thrived on, or maybe like a Heat team where they really do rotate as one cohesive defensive unit. And it was pretty clear from the beginning that the Celtics had some really good players, but also a few like weak links on the defensive and offensive side.
Sorry, just to interject, I'm so sorry.
You
said
that
they didn't have a chance to stop Steph Curry. That's so weird, because I thought they had the defensive player of the year. The defensive player of the year is on their team.
Well, was it Ivan who said that, or was that Patrick in the chat? It was like, well, I feel like every time Draymond runs into the defensive player of the year, we come out of the series realizing how much better Draymond is than that guy.
So I think that was Ivan. I can't claim to be that.
I think it was Ivan.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, right? Draymond is the best defensive player of his generation, and like you see it every time it actually matters. And I think you absolutely agree, Mr. Dubs. Like it's the figuring out, and Curry in Game 4, you could see the Boston Celtics figured that out, right? And I think last time when we were talking with Tom, we were kind of saying that I was saying that one of the things I noticed was at the end of that game, that bench looked like they'd lost. They weren't tied 2-2, like they'd lost the series, because they realized like Steph Curry's so good, he's just going to destroy us. But I wonder whether the thing that they figured out is that, because I suppose that was certainly true, but I didn't know, I'm sure Andre could see it before, but I didn't know until like you actually see it again in game, and that Game 4 was incredible. I do wonder the games, talking about what they figured out after Game 3. Well, in Game 4, they held them to 97 points. In Game 5, 94 points. In Game 6, 90 points. So I wonder if they'd like
the other side
at that point. Actually, you know what? We can defend these guys. If we defend as we know we can, we make the right rotations, we're locked in. they can't score on us. And then as you say, we've got Steph Curry who can go nuts on the other end and they can't guard him. So I do wonder if that was just Andre with his kind of, his like defensive IQ and a little bit of kind of bravado, pointing to something there that they unlocked. I will say, I thought Boston were a very good finals team. I was definitely worried down 2-1. I thought they're young. They've got some really interesting pieces. I kind of feel like the inexperience both the inexperience and the long playoff run they had, because they had a very short rotation. They played 2 7-game series. Like, it felt like at certain points in Game 5 and Game 6, they'd make a run. The Warriors would respond and they'd be like, oh, okay, whereas the Warriors aren't going to do that. They're going to come back and they're going to come back and they're going to come back. And you kind of feel like Boston, when they can figure that out, right? And then they will be really tough. And I think, some of the stuff that Jason Tatum's getting, some of the kind of slander that he's getting. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is a really, really good defender. This isn't about Tatum. This is about how good Andrew Wiggins was defending him. As Daniel and Tom were saying last time. So, I respect the Celtics, worthy opponent, played hard, but I think the Warriors figured out they can defend this team. And what, the thing I don't understand about the kind of, the Celtics, the greatest defense who's ever lived, like the Warriors were basically the greatest defense that ever lived in the first half of the season until Draymond Green got injured. And then everyone pretended, no, they're trash now. I was like, well, there's no Draymond Green. So you put Draymond Green back and, they can defend. Who could foresee such a thing? Yeah. So,
that's what
they figured out.
One of the things that's crazy about the sort of heat that Tatum is taking is like, this is part of what Curry has done to redefine the NBA. It's like, you can't just kill a team. You have to be efficiently killing them to make it work, right? That's how Andre Iguodala got his finals MVP. Like, LeBron absolutely torched the team, but like, it was harder for him than normal. Tatum put up like Kobe-esque efficiency numbers. If his team had won, or if it was a different era, I don't think that he would get the same sort of scrutiny that he gets in the modern NBA for being inefficient in a playoff setting against a really good defense. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad that y'all brought the defensive part, because to me, that's what clicked in my brain. 2 specific things. Number one, they stopped letting the Celtics just go to the right hand. And can you remember the Celtics go to the right hand? I think they shot like 99% from the field. They were ridiculous, right? And I remember Jeff Van Gundy was screaming at, like, why they keep letting him go to the right? Like, why? And so I started like, wait, Jeff Van Gundy is actually making sense. This is a pretty big key here. Okay, we gotta actually pay attention to this. This guy knows what he's talking about. And then I saw that they were letting them go right all the time. And then in that game 1 debacle where they blew like a 20-point lead, they let them go right. And then they were not rotating hard on those 3-point shooters. It was like Al Horford, shoot it. Derek White, shoot it. Like whatever. And those dudes were hitting. They hit like 10 threes in the fourth quarter. Like, that was insane. And I remember,
what are you going to do?
Hearing the chase crowd, like the players were kind of dismayed. And it dawned on me that for the first time, I had to honestly say the Warriors kind of let off the gas because they were not rotating hard anymore. I figured they had broken their wills. That's when I knew that they weren't scared of the Celtics. That's when I knew. When you blow a 20-point lead at home just because you're like, these guys suck, like whatever.
You can have that shot again.
And then Al Horford's like, I've been practicing my whole life to be a stretch big. This is perfect for me. You're like, oh, wow. Like, you have to actually respect these guys. And of course, then you lose like the game 1. Now, you win game 2 by like 40 points, but you still lost home court advantage. You know what I mean? Now you're going to Boston. And of course, they're going to win game 3, the first game at home, in front of their fans. So, I mean, it made sense. But they won 3 straight games after that, not giving up crazy open threes, except for that one. Was it game 5 where the Celtics hit like 9 threes in a row or something crazy? And I was like, guys, you got to guard him again. You cannot let him shoot these wide open threes. Okay, we'll lock him up. And that's where it goes to Andrew Wiggins. And I want to give a short monologue before we move on. This is from the movie Training Day, starring Denzel Washington. And this is what I'm thinking Andrew Wiggins was thinking when he saw Jason Tatum getting those easy threes in game 1. You mother... Okay, all right. I'm putting cases on all you Celtics, huh? You think you can do this to me, huh? You think you can do this to me? You Boston mother, will you playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get finished with you? Show program, 23-hour lockdown. I'm the man up in this piece. You'll never see the light of day. Andrew Wiggins put on a defensive performance that I think is not getting enough attention. Jason Tatum was considered the guy who was next. The only thing Tatum was the next to do was to get locked forever on Wiggins Island. Woo! I'm so glad Andrew Wiggins is here. I'm so excited he's here. You know what? I need one more. Supporting basketball. Hennessy, the drink of champions. Okay. So yeah, the Celtics are gone. And now we got to think about what's next. The parade. The parade's next. But after the parade, we got a draft coming up. We got to think about how we're going to, pay these guys. What can we pay? And that's why we have you on, Patrick. We need some help here to figure out these tough numbers. Dub Nation needs to know. First of all, actually, W-Dubs, can you kind of lead this part here? What would you say is the off-season priority list as far as what we got to do? And Patrick, can you make it make sense as far as how much we pay going out?
Yeah, so we're basically in a point where everything's mostly okay. You know, as much as some people like the Chronicle would like to draw some emergency scenarios, we're just not there yet. Guys like Poole and Wiggins are eligible for extensions, but they're not expiring. They can just come back next year and everything's all good. The real sort of points of movement are going to be, I think, most importantly, is Kayvon Looney. He's up. I believe he's restricted, but the Kings just love picking through our leftovers. And they got Mike Brown coming, and they're already hitting the rumor mill saying they're interested in Looney. I think the Warriors will match some sort of overpay, but it's the Kings, so they could do something totally stupid and crazy. So I think Looney is the top priority. And then after that, I think it's Gary Payton, followed very closely by Otto Porter. Gary Payton is the defensive ace guard that can fit in and switch onto bigs the Warriors have been looking for a long time. He understands the systems really well, and he's like elite defensively. You know, this is how AC Law got into the rotation. You know what I mean? Like, they've been looking for a good defensive ace to shore up for Steph Curry when they just are getting abused by some little quick dude or something. I think Porter might go. I think, you know, being a tall guy that can shoot and sort of play multiple positions and rebound well, I think he's going to get some pretty juicy offers. And I don't know, and maybe Pat, this is a good time to segue to Patrick. It's like, you know, would we dip into the mini MLE next year to retain some of these guys, whereas before we didn't? And I know that in the discussion, the sort of end of the year discussion, Bob Myers was saying about Gary Payton, who's on an NBA minimum contract, that was a $12 million decision for the team with taxes and everything. So that's a minimum contract. So I assume using the MLE will be maybe not something they're going to do next year, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd agree with that order of business in terms of Looney first, then Payton, then if you can, Porter. So, I mean, just to run through some numbers. So I suppose first thing to say.
Hey, Pat, I'm sorry. Debbie, you didn't mention Jordan Poole. Is Jordan Poole still under contract?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They will get bags though. Just not
yet.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is the issues this offseason, you can sign Poole to an extension, you can sign Wiggins to an extension. They don't kick in until after the end of next season. And everything you're doing this season, if you sign guys to a multi-year contract, it's the next season that's a question mark when you get Poole and Wiggins kick in.
So just to be clear, you're saying we shouldn't worry about those big contracts this season?
No, I mean, they might sign them. They might, they can sign them, so they might sign them. But if they don't, that doesn't mean they're gone. That just means that the Warriors are not making a decision until they actually have to make a decision, which is actually how they've always operated. They don't give people money, like more money than they need to give them in advance.
Except Andre.
And you can play it out, particularly Jordan Poole is a restricted free agent. So I'll come on to his situation in a minute, because I think if I were Jordan Poole, I'm not sure I would sign an extension this offseason. I might wait until I was a restricted free agent and have.
So all the hand-wringing that we had this season about losing Jordan Poole and Wiggins doesn't make any sense?
No. But it gets clicks, though, Daniel. It gets clicks, which is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. All clicks count the same. Rage clicks, fear clicks, happy clicks, all the same. Anyway, but yeah, to go into the kind of into the specific. So this season, this next season, 22-23, the luxury tax threshold is going to be about 149 million. The Warriors have already got salaries for 8 players plus the first round pick of about 173. So that leaves them basically, if they want to get, they can, you need to sign another 5 players to get to the 14. A couple of minimums. They've got 2 second round picks. That counts less than the veteran minimum, so they might do that to save some money. But they could go for a full vet min. And then you've got, I think, really, unless Porter's willing to take like a very small contract, I think you're probably looking at Looney and then Payton. But let's say Looney and Payton, between them, they both get the equivalent of the taxpayer mid-level, which is about 6.5 million, which is quite conservative. That would put the Warriors at just over $190 million on total salary, which is 41. Sorry?
He said, damn.
Damn, yeah. Which is $41.5 million over the luxury tax, right? Which gives you, because they're in the repeater tax, a luxury tax bill of $185 million. So there and thereabouts. So
checkbook championships. Checkbook championships.
Patrick, I had a question about the repeater tax, if I could. Does it keep increasing, or once you're in it, you're in it? You're in it. So okay, it's not worse in year 2 or year 3 of the repeater tax.
No, it's just like an extra dollar on the multiplier. Yeah. So and you're in it until you get out of it, and you've got to be in it. It's if you're in the tax 3 years in 4 years and that season, so effectively 4 in 5 years, then you're in the repeater tax. So the Warriors would have to duck out of the luxury tax for several years, and that ain't going to happen for a long time.
Do you think it's more important to win championships or get under the tax?
Win championships, obviously. Okay, and that's what the Warriors think as well, right? So, but to give you an example, right? So you're in that 40 to 45 million dollar bracket over the tax. That means every dollar is taxed 6.75 times. So, for example, if you added another 3 million onto that figure that I talked about, so you're 41 over, so you get to 45 million. Your luxury tax bill goes up from 185 to 208, thereabouts, 208.5. So you go up from a total salary and tax bill of 375 to about 400. And so that to me is basically says to me you can bring back Looney and Payton as long as one of them doesn't get an absolutely crazy offer. So if one gets 10 million and the other gets 6.5, you can just about do that. You're probably all right. I'd be very interested to see. I mean, the Kings might overpay, but would you want to leave this situation to go to the Kings? I mean, they'd have to overpay by a lot. You give them 20 million a year for like 3 years. Like Warriors aren't matching that. So there are things like that. But barring any crazy offers, I think they can bring both back. I mean, Payton, I think, will probably be in more demand around the league, you would imagine, because big men tend to get paid less. But I guess we'll have to see. The Porter situation is interesting because, like, they've all said they want to come back. I think he would want to come back, but you could see him getting the taxpayer mid-level exception from a whole bunch of contenders, right? 6.5. If you've already got Looney and Payton on 6.5, it feels a bit of a stretch to do that. And the other thing you've got to think about here is that you've got to create some room for Kuminga and Moody and Wiseman to get more minutes in the regular season. So you're kind of developing them next year. And I think, I'd love it if Porter was back, but I could see, he's only 28, 29. I could see him going for another big contract, basically.
Patrick, I have a quick question for you. When you look at these new problems we have to find solutions for, in the light of where we were when Kevin Durant left and Clay was damn near crippled, and we were already in luxury tax hell at that point. I know that you had written extensively about the way out for the Warriors. And WWW, I think, astutely described it as being like the Warriors being screwed in a lot of ways, just because the
still true.
I mean, dude, like, that's not an easy problem to solve. You know what I mean? So, like, it makes perfect sense. When you look at how they've solved it so far, as you mentioned, lottery picks coming in, which are cheaper, and also, growing developmental talent that can take over, hopefully, down the road. Poole, Kuminga, Moody, Wiseman, if all works out, could be like the next generation, but also the fact that we were able to survive losing Kevin Durant like that. What do you think went right for the front office, and what do you think people underestimated about their plan?
So I think in the context of this, the Russell trade was about keeping that salary slot alive. So you could, everyone's always said, oh, they can't possibly afford to pay all these players. So when they had Kevin Durant, the thing that was going to break up the Warriors was the finances. They were never going to pay more than $300 million because they were never going to have 4 max contracts. Well, look at them now. They're paying at least $350, I think, this year, or around about that. So that proved to be wrong. They made a conscious decision to have that max salary slot. Flip the Kevin Durant. They could have just let him go, used the taxpayer mid-level, kept Andre Iguodala, in his 70 million, and kind of rolled it on like that. They'd have had no way of getting another max player because they're so far over the cap. So they made a conscious decision to get that salary slot and then to use it effectively to flip it into Wiggins. And, a lot of people, myself included, for some time thought, well, is that an asset, a long-term asset play? Now, the more that Wiggins played for the Warriors and you start seeing it, particularly towards the end of last season, the boys thought, actually, how are you going to replace that wing defense? So, is there actually anyone who's going to be any better? And you kind of get to actually, no, you probably keep him, and they've been absolutely.
Bradley Beal, of course.
That was one of the big problems with the Beal trade. Actually, is what's our solution at the wing? Sure, now you've got this trio of super high scoring guards, but the utility of Wiggins was really big.
Yeah, and you've got Jordan Poole doing the kind of third scoring guard thing anyway. So you don't need Bradley Beal. You can. And he's healthy as well, which obviously Brad Beal wasn't this season. You wouldn't be in the finals if you'd made that trade because he's been injured. You wouldn't have had anyone to defend people on the wing. But I think that the point on the finances is they always find a way to keep the players they want to keep and to keep it running. And I think, so when I'm looking at this off season, I don't really see a problem this off season. I think if they want to pay 375, if they want to pay 400 million, they'll do that, right? That's not a problem. The interesting thing is then what happens in 23, 24. So at the end of next season, where you've got Jordan Poole's contract coming up, and you've got Andrew Wiggins coming up, and that's where people think, oh, they're going to have to trade one of them. And if you just look at the numbers, and I'm going to go through the numbers, and I understand why people are talking about that, but they're not talking about the whole picture, which I think is the problem here. But let's just kind of go through this. So Sportrack have got a luxury tax threshold, anticipated luxury tax threshold of 156.5. The Warriors already have 147.5 for 7 players on the books. Then you're assuming they've signed Looney and Payton on those kind of taxpayer mid-level-esque deals. They go up. So that's about that of 15 million on those two. You have a couple of vet mins, another second rounder. So then you're at 167.5 for 12 players. So then what do you give Wiggins and Poole? And we can kind of argue about their value, but let's say between them, they're making 55 million together. Let's say 55 million, so pencil Wiggins at 30, Poole in at 25. The Warriors would be $222 million on salary, which, check this out, is $65 million over the luxury tax threshold. And the tax bill on that is $368 million, $368.75 million. So they're not going to do that, right? They're not going to do that because then you're getting $590 million for the salary and tax combined. So I can understand people saying, well, they can't re-sign both, but that's never what the Warriors have done, right? They've never done it like that. What they've done is they've squeezed the mid-level contracts. They've got people to take discounts where they need to take discounts. So to illustrate this out, if you knock 10 million off that, you get to, you're only 55 million over. Your tax bill drops from 365.75 to 283.75. So and with the salary, you drop under the 500 million mark, which is still pretty high, right? If you take $50 million off, then you're it's a very reasonable 450 million total for 244 on the tax and about 207 on the salaries. Now, how do you do that without having to choose between Wiggins and Poole? So there is going to be a decision point, and this is where if one of Looney or Payton get a big offer this offseason, they probably are gone, right? Because you can't give these long-term deals on this big money out, and one of the ways you could drop money is you probably have to move off one of them, would be one way. There are plenty of others, so you might not have to do this. The other one, I think, extremely unlikely. But if Wiseman was injured again, if you looked at a career-ending situation, none of us want to be in that situation. I look at Robert Williams, and I've been pretty sceptical on Wiseman, as you know, right from the beginning. My guy Obi Toppin, had a roaring end of the season for the Knicks. I'm going to die on that hill that he would have been a good pick for the Warriors. But anyway. Wiseman, I think, having seen what Robert Williams was able to do, and certainly, the first couple of years of his career, he didn't play very much either. Like, if Wiseman can give you just a bit of that over the next couple of years, that is going to be massive for the Warriors. And that's not even counting, the kind of unlocking the skill and the 3-point shoot. So I really don't think they're going to get rid of Wiseman, but he will have $12 million contract that year. If he was really injured, you could, and I'm not suggesting you would do that. I think.
Wait, I love how you're saying the Time Lord is Wiseman's floor.
Well, actually, I've got to give a hat tip to Brad Wannamaker here, because there was a Zoom call when Brad Wannamaker was on the team, and people were trying to get a sense. It was Wiseman's first season. People were trying to get a sense of what people thought of Wiseman. Someone asked him, what do you think is a good comp for James Wiseman? And he said, I think Robert Williams in Boston. And you could see everyone on the call being like, what are you doing? Because Robert Williams wasn't Robert Williams at that point. They were like, what are you talking about? Actually, it's pretty prescient, because Wiseman, if he can turn into that the next season or two, it's going to be really, really. I was really impressed with Time Lord, and I think that kind of play for the Warriors is something they don't have and could really use. But anyway, right. So these are options you don't want to do. You don't really want to dump Looney or Payton. You might have to move off one if depending on where you're at. You definitely don't want to dump Wiseman. So then the other two options. You could look at kind of further discounts from Wiggins and Paul. So I penciled them there at 30 and 25. Now, I know you're pretty skeptical of this, but I would just, we've been through this Wiggins situation with Draymond Green. Everyone thought there's no way they can re-sign Draymond Green, the best defender of his generation. He's going to be due $35 million. Basically the Clay deal, the $190 million, but with an extra year of inflation on it, starting at $35 million. And did he sign that deal? No. He signed a year before he was able to sign that deal, would have been able to sign that deal. He signed an extension of his contract, which had been signed on the old CBA. So it was a much lower deal. So he ended up with $100 million over 4 years. So people take less money to stay with this team, and particularly people whose value is not in scoring 30 points a game, but is doing the dirty work on defense and all the little things that help you win. For some bizarre reason, doesn't really get you paid by the Sacramento Kings or whatever. So I think there is a possibility. And actually, I said at 30, but if you start at 25, you could still give him a 4-year deal averaging 30 a year, but you can start 25, 26, 27. And it's only, and we'll come into this in a bit, it's only the first year that really matters in this context, actually, because some of the other things that are going on here.
Everything else changes.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can get him to take a little bit less in that first year, that extension, and over the course of the thing, you make it up and you give him, 4 years, $120 million, something like that. That's a pretty good deal for Wiggins. You tack on the 33 he's got, it's $153 million over the next 5 years. I'm not going to tell someone else to do with that money, but he's already made, he's already made 147. You could see him taking that kind of winner's discount. Paul's a little more difficult, and this is why I say if I were him, I would kind of wait, because I think at the moment lots of people around the league are talking kind of Tyler Hero kind of space of 20 to 25 million is what people would expect. I do wonder if you just earlier in the playoffs you were thinking max, finals he had his moments and he was really good, but he wasn't quite against the first 3 games against the Nuggets or something like that. So you could see him hold on for another year, see if you can get the max deal. But I don't know, you could give him 4 years, $100 million quite happily. He'd start at 22, 23. And I would just say what I found interesting was Bobby Marks, the ESPN guy, in his off-season preview, he was talking about those kinds of figures for those players. And I don't necessarily mean that he's got his pulse necessarily absolutely on the Warriors or anything, but he will have his pulse on what the guys' value is league-wide.
Yeah. So
who's actually going to rock up to pay this kind of money? So, right, that's one way you can save money. That's another way you can save a bit of money in the context of this. Those guys could take a little bit less. Then the final way, which I think is a possibility. So Draymond Green has got a player option that year. He could sign an extension this offseason. I don't think they should do this. because what you could do in that season is like basically what players do at the end of the career, like everyone has that large final season big number that they opt out of and then sign like a 3 or 4 year deal so they exchanged a 1 year big money for 3 or 4 years going into the end of their career, more reasonable number for the team. But so if he changes that 27 million and he signs a 4 year deal in that off season to 20 million, starting at 20 million a year, you probably get up to 85, 90 million dollars for the last 4 years, for the next 4 years of his career as he goes into. But then again, that's where you save some money. And then you've got other things that are going on. So if the cap goes up a little bit, even if it goes up a couple of million, that makes a huge difference actually, because the luxury tax threshold goes up a couple of million. So your tax bill goes down, it doesn't go down a couple of million, it goes down a couple of million times, whatever, what are we at, 7.25, 7.75, 8.25, when you're at these kind of crazy numbers. So there are lots of ways that you could see this playing out where they don't end up in this 500 million plus end and more in that kind of 450, 475 range, which is an enormous figure, enormous figure. We should not undersell that, but it is a figure they can pay. And this is what I always say, and I've been writing about ever since Golden State of Mind days, all the days through Forbes, like at least 5 years, you can't count the money coming out without at least having some kind of attempt to count the money coming in, because that's the thing. And you want to talk about checkbook wins, right? The reason they're able to do this is because all this revenue is being generated because this team is so successful. So Chase Center is basically the house that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green built. Now, that's not to do that anything they've done on the business side, because they've been unbelievable. Rick Welts was, one of the greats of the kind of business of basketball all time, Hall of Famer, amazing job. It's phenomenal what they've done. But even, he's said to me that, ultimately we couldn't have been as successful as we were unless we had the success we had on the court. So the on the court success feeds the off the court success, which allows them to pay for the on the court success. So checkbook wins really, the reason that I think is unfair is because the reason they're able to pay is, and they've been very successful on the business side, is because of the success on the court. But yeah, I'll pause there because that's a lot of numbers I've just thrown out there, and some of them are big and scary. But what I'm trying to say is there's ways through this, and they will be able to find a way through it, as they have done every other time they've been faced with this kind of challenge.
Sort of on those lines, let me just back up a little bit. Daniel really loves the they're screwed comment that I made, because and I think that looking back on it in retrospect, they're screwed and everyone's like, haha, yeah, they are. And, they've achieved this almost like Steph Curry shooting efficiency. They're making a ton of really crazy gambles with imperfect information. And some of them work out to varying degrees. Some of them flat out don't work out. But I think that you can have both things be true at the same time. You can be in a situation where you're totally screwed, but also in a situation where you're in good shape because of the moves you make paying off, right? And that's where Golden State's at, man. They've made some crazy risks and some controversial decisions. Obviously, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, they were on the record multiple times to Marcus Thompson of The Athletic talking about how they wanted Avery Bradley, bring in a veteran. And, and then Bob Myers in the post game, in the final game of the season, was talking about how they almost didn't bring in anybody in that spot because it was $12 billion. These are the sorts of, Bielitsa had no right to be that valuable in a playoff setting. Like, what the hell was that? So I think that, even without getting the specificity of the actual numbers involved, this team, this front office has demonstrated like a pretty elite ability to navigate these decision points where, once Kevin Durant left, it was just a scramble. They're into these contingencies upon contingencies. And if that works out, we'll do this. But it's been successful because the risks they take are smart, not because they're foolproof or because they couldn't fail. It's just with the information they've had, they've done great at setting themselves up. And like Patrick's saying, I wouldn't say that this team is going to fall apart because of money based on the past 3 years of what they've gone through. And this is the fastest time in NBA history that a team has gone from the worst record to a championship. And the injuries obviously factored into that. But the fact is that the Warriors navigated a really, really tricky situation. And I don't think anybody looking in from the outside can reasonably say that they could have done a better job.
Well, I think that's where I want to bring up the 3 points I mentioned earlier, which was from Simon Sharon Gordon's Twitter thread I showed y'all in the Slack. Number one, Kurt was criticized for continuing to run his system instead of simplifying the offense for last year's roster, as well as for limiting Curry's minutes. I remember the whole chasing wins thing people were upset about. Then Myers caught flag for the Russell signing trade, the Wiggins trade, the unwillingness to make a win now trade last season and again this year, namely moving young pieces and Wiggins for a star. And then finally, both Myers and Kerr were criticized for trying to toe the line between focusing on the present and the future. It was difficult for people to grasp where the Warriors wouldn't either go all in or lean into a rebuild. And these were the things that I was, during the time of the things being said, I was saying, you're an idiot. I was saying loudly, if you think this, you're an idiot, right? And the reason why I thought that was a very simple formula, as you all agree with me on. If Steph, Clay, and Dre are healthy, put me and you guys out there. We're going to the finals.
Oh, let's not go that far. I'm pretty fat.
We're going to the finals. It's just that simple. We have 3 all-stars who are with any kind of health. You're going to the finals. I mean, that's just been NBA history. If you have 3 guys who love to play together, they're all-stars. Hell, if it's just 2 guys, you're probably going to the finals.
Right.
And the rest of the stuff I thought, while very important, I thought was peripheral to the fact that the core was so strong.
It's crazy. Just a quick point of order. They're not beating super teams anymore. You don't need Kevin Durant and this sort of like pantheon of NBA talent anymore. The teams they were sort of built, and they sort of became a standard. Like, oh, there's teams that are assembling to beat this Golden State dynasty. You have to be that good to beat the teams that are structured to beat that. And then you pointed out early in the offseason, like, who's in the West that they're worried about? Like, who's in the East that they're really worried about? And at that point, by the time you really meet somebody from the East, it's a 7-game series, and to take whoever you want, but I'm taking the Warriors. Oh, and the other point of order, it's not that the Warriors were unwilling to make a win now trade. It was that when they couldn't find it, they were quickly like, this is the Joe Lacob thing. That's not our path. They didn't keep trying to chase it or settle for Corey Maggette or whoever the modern version equivalent of that is, maybe Bradley Beal. But, it wasn't that they didn't want to. They were unwilling to part with their young talent. They absolutely would have traded everybody for fucking Giannis or something like that. But if Giannis isn't coming, then you can't get hung up on that. And that was something that the Warriors did really well. As soon as it was clear that they couldn't take their preferred path, well, now it's a youth movement and we're sticking with our core, and it's going to work if it works, because, and like I said, this is the beginning. He's like, if we don't make it, look at our 4 highly paid guys. You got to tell Steph and Clay and Draymond and Wiggins that they weren't good enough. And a big part of this success this year, especially for someone like me, who was hella skeptical, is Wiggins was legitimately the second best player on this team throughout the playoffs. It was a huge factor.
Yeah, I do think that the fan base says if we can't get Giannis, the front office doesn't know what they're doing is alarming.
Yeah, you're not willing to make a win now trade. It's like they're super willing to make a win now trade. They just it's just not out there. If you want to turn Andrew Wiggins into 2 worst players, you could do that. That's a trade that you could do. But turning your sort of junk drawer into a sort of win now asset, it's tough. It's tough, and teams know what they have, and it's this sort of there's a value to the unknown with NBA talent, where there's a sort of premium on younger players with a high ceiling. What are they going to turn into? We don't know. Also, I'm going to have to go soon, guys.
That's right. That's totally true. We are coming up over time here. Okay. Patrick, can you send us home by telling Dub Nation how much money is going to be coming in?
Yeah, sure. So just to give you a bit of a sense, I mean, what's coming in? So it's difficult to say. We have to kind of wait for some of the figures to come out. The best, you might say, I would say this, but I think that probably the best thing to look at is the Forbes valuations. So the pre-pandemic, they were looking at 474 million of revenue for that season. That was half a season without Chase Centre Open, and then half a season with Chase Centre Open, but the team on 15 and 50 win pace. So, you know, that's like your baseline. I've seen 700 million floated around recently. You know, there are things that have come through since then. So the new patch deal with Rakuten, according to CNBC, is worth 40 plus million a year, up from the 2025. The playoff gate receipts, Tim Kawakami at The Athletic estimated 120 million from this playoff run. So these long playoff runs mean that they can do the things they need to do. The interesting one that no one talks about, and especially the Warriors haven't talked about, is they sold some minor stakes to a private equity company. And that was the total 13%, equivalent to a 5.5 billion valuation. So people say the valuations don't matter. Actually, what you need to look at is the numbers underneath the valuation, revenue coming in, operating profit. But actually, they do matter if you're selling minority stakes like that. So you can see this money flowing in. And I just, you know, go back to like where they're on the business side of the equation. Their valuation went up 1,000% over the last decade, which, you know, it's insane. And like realization, and that's, you know, this is the first season they've had Chase Centre open all season, you know, with concerts and you know, all the shops and restaurants. So they're still opening the restaurants, and you know, before the pandemic was closed down. So, you know, they're printing money. They're going to have enough money to pay these big bills. I think the other thing I just wanted to touch on very quickly is just a couple of bits that it's worth recognizing in the wider scheme. So there is going to be some collective bargaining agreement. There's going to be some negotiations over the summer. That there's an opt-out potentially in December, could end in 2024. Sides are already talking. What's really interesting is Zach Lowe's column. He wouldn't have put this out there if it wasn't being seriously discussed. I don't think. They're talking about you know, luxury tax relief essentially on players who you have drafted, and considering there are 8 players, I think, on the Warriors roster who they've drafted. You know, you could see that they're paying, you know, if you're paying 50%, 75% of the luxury tax on those contracts instead of 100%, that immediately makes a massive difference. The other thing about the new CBA, there's a new TV deal coming. You remember last time there was a big TV deal, a big jump in TV deal. 2016, cap jumped, they got Durant. So, you know, obviously this TV deal, if it's big and all the rumors are there, Forbes were reporting an industry expert saying that it could be double the current deal. I've seen other places treble. So, you know, the TV deal is going to be massive. Whether or not they kind of balance that out over a number of years in a process known as smoothing, or they just have one big jump as they had before, they probably want to avoid that, which might be where they're kind of some of the CBA negotiations will be. But like that means that, again, the cap's going to jump, the luxury tax thresholds are going to jump. And, you know, you only need the luxury tax thresholds to jump 1 or 2 brackets up for the Warriors, say 5 or 10 million, you know, and all of a sudden that 600 million becomes 450, 500, 450 and down. So, you know, there's real opportunities out there in the NBA landscape that mean that, you know, with the money that the Warriors are bringing in, which means they can pay the kinds of bills they're going to pay next year, and some of the contracts coming off the books over the next few years, you know, Clay comes off at some point and presumably will sign for a slightly smaller deal than the enormous $45 million he's on the next couple of years. You know, those kinds of things, and you can't see, you know, Wiseman will come up for an extension, but like he's eligible next off season for the extension. He can be really good this season. He's probably not getting a max, you know, so you could get him on like a Steph-like deal almost, you know, the 4 for 44, that whatever it was, 4 for 48 that Steph got in the beginning, that was the kind of salary that set the whole thing of this dynasty up. So there's loads of things coming up that can break in the Warriors' favor, and they don't need. This is the thing: they don't need all of these things to break in their favor. They've got enough money to pay the people that they want to pay. They can make some decisions when they have to make the decisions, if they absolutely have to, but they can keep the core guys they want, and they'll make those decisions when they have to, in the full knowledge of what the new landscape of the league is going to be, which could be really quite different from what it is now financially. So my kind of top message to everyone: don't worry, they've got the money, they can pay these guys if they want to pay them. And, you know, yeah, if there's a massive crazy offer for Kevon Looney, you know, 20 million a year, or Gary Payton 15, 20 million a year, could happen. Okay, then you probably lose them. But as long as they're in a kind of reasonable reasonable range, like the mid-level exception, taxpayer mid-level exception, 6.5, 10 million kind of range, then I think they're probably going to be all right this off season to keep together pretty much everyone, and then next off season they can keep Wiggins and Poole if they want to, and ultimately the key to this is winning. If they win, they bring the money in, they can pay the guys, and this team is winning. And you know what? It looks like this is the beginning. As I said, this is the beginning of something, of another iteration of this run. They don't look like they're slowing down. They look like they're picking up. Those young players are going to get better. The older players, Steph looks, this is the best he played all season in the finals. He was incredible. Clay, his defense got better and better through the finals. So you could see you're always better the second year you come back from major injuries, usually. So I would expect him to press less as well. So his shot selection might be a little better than some of the crazy games, and Draymond Green, where you can keep the wear and tear off him with some of the young guys you've got around in Kuminga and Wiseman if they're good to go as well. So there's, they're in a really, really good spot. Money's not going to be the thing that breaks it up. That's my prediction.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. I don't want to hear any more hand-wringing or fear-mongering or complaining. Every time you do, I'm going to link to this clip. Just enjoy your championship in silence. Oh, sorry. Love you guys. We're champs again. I know we got to get out of here and enjoy our festivities, but happy Father's Day to you both. And I appreciate everything you do for DNHQ. Let's go get drunk, huh? Yeah, let's do that.
See you all at the parade, huh?
Yeah.